Now, just a quick introduction, finally, to our co-host. Sue McLean is Technology and FinTech Partner at McKenzie, one of the leading firms in the space, who's going to talk to us a little bit about the impact of enterprise adoption. Please welcome Sue McLean.
You can all hear me. Excellent. Thanks very much all for coming tonight. It's a pleasure to host the London Blockchain Foundation, and Linda and the team have been great to work with on this topic, a very hot topic, which has brought you all here tonight. I just wanted to sort of, following on from Ariel, look at this in terms of what its impact could be, and sort of set it in perspective in terms of our work here at McKenzie, working for big enterprise companies who have been kind of treading carefully in terms of blockchain, in particular in terms of crypto projects. I know that Facebook have a slogan, which is, "What would you do if you weren't afraid?" And I suspect the answer is you try to launch a very ambitious global cryptocurrency / payments system. So I mean, for one thing, I think, you know, in many ways, good on for you. You know, this is a hugely ambitious project to encourage crypto adoption at scale across their billions of users across, you know, Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram. And I think they recognise that. If you read their paper that came out with the launch, they say we acknowledge this is going to be a long and arduous project, and we're going to need partners to work with on it. And that's because, you know, A, it's new technology. B, as we've just heard, there is a very complex existing regulatory framework of laws that will apply to this that they're going to have to look at, and they're going to be under huge scrutiny because of the nature and the ambition behind the project, and it's going to involve significant investment, not just from them, but from the published partners that are going to be working on them. With them on this project. But I think, you know, if, as we heard from Ariel, it has got huge potential, and if this does launch, it could be a real game changer. I think not just for Libra, but for the whole cryptocurrency asset market. You know, we've had Bitcoin for over 10 years, but it remains a very niche activity for most people. You know, this is a small number. I think there's something like 32 million digital wallets out there, but there's a lot fewer users or owners of Bitcoin, and a lot of people have multiple wallets, and it's certainly very much a fringe activity at the moment, despite the ICO craze and then the downturn. People are wary of it. You know, people, as you say, find it all very complicated. It's not very user friendly. And therefore, I think a lot of people have been waiting for a big enterprise to issue their own token to see where this could go. And certainly a lot of our clients over the last few years have been looking at this very seriously themselves, across various sectors, including retail, about, you know, should we be issuing our own coin, and what would it do, and how could it give us new revenue opportunities, and create a different relationship with our users and our customers. But I think because of the reputational issues, and because of the downturn, the crypto winter that happened, a lot of those projects that big companies had spent a lot of time and money on, looking at legal and regulatory issues and tax implications, they kind of were put on ice. And people started to you know, just focus on blockchain in the supply chain and in other use cases, and they kind of put the token issuing on ice. And I think they'll all be watching this really carefully. And actually, you know, Facebook will be out there effectively exploring this for them. You know, there'll be a lot of very interesting developments, I think, and scrutiny over this, which will be helpful for everybody who is thinking about doing something similar. And personally, I always thought that an obvious use case was platform. You've got an existing strong user base. People want to make peer-to-peer payments. You've got, you know, WeChat in Asia, where you can just stay within the platform all day, and you can make payments, and it reduces the friction for the customer. So I thought to myself, you know, it seems to me this is a pretty obvious use case. To be honest, and frankly, you know, I was thinking that Amazon Coin might be first. as a Amazon Prime member, I thought if they issued Amazon Prime tokens instead of membership, I think they would have raised a lot of money and a lot of people would use it. So I suspect that there are a lot of tech companies who have been thinking about doing something similar, but Facebook's the first one to actually put the marker out and announce that they want to do it. So I think, as we say, it's, you can argue, and there's always a lot of argument in the blockchain world about, is it a blockchain, is it a crypto? Here, to me, it's more of an evolution of, in a way, although Jeff and others may disagree, it's an evolution of what we saw with PayPal. It's a payment system, but a hugely ambitious one. And for me, as a lawyer, I'm just really interested to see where this develops. Obviously, I think they'll have a lot of discussion back home in the US first, but I'm kind of hoping that having a real significant company looking at adopting this will mean that we might have a little less of the wait and see from the regulators, which has happened up to now. A lot of people have been looking, learning, and dealing with particular market issues where they thought important to do so. But generally speaking, there hasn't been that much new law and regulation or guidance around crypto because people have been not wanting to impede innovation and thinking it's still quite a niche activity. So I think this will encourage hopefully more collaboration around the world between the regulators so that we have more of a harmonised approach than we have seen up to now. And I think that will be very useful. I think also certainly what I've seen on these projects is that they require a lot of collaboration and there will be a lot of governance. And again, we're still kind of looking for best practice about how these multi-party consortia and other organisations can work effectively when they're trying to create something ambitious. And I think, again, this will perhaps provide more learnings for people who are trying to do that about how you approach these things. And I think maybe, hopefully, eventually, we have a lot of events, we're still talking about blockchain, we're still having arguments about what is this thing we're talking about, is it permissioned, is it permissionless, is it really blockchain, it's not really blockchain, why are they, but I think ultimately this is a useful umbrella term for everybody, and ultimately what we need to drive adoption and maturity is talking about the use cases, and up to now there's a lot of pilots, there's a lot of projects, but the average person in the street doesn't really understand what it could do for them. And certainly, I've got children, I've got very non-technical colleagues here at McKenzie, and they say, well, I don't even really understand it. I try and read this Libra white paper, and it's talking about Merkle cheese and encryption, and I just don't understand it. And I say, well, do you understand how the internet works, really? Do you understand, what sits behind Uber, or do you just press a button? And so I think Ariel's right, the kind of making it accessible for people will drive adoption. There are other issues around, the implications of that, but I think it's a great experiment, and I'd like to see it launch so that we can see how this is actually going to work in practice, because at the moment we're all still just talking about ifs. So I think it's an exciting time and potentially could be a real turning point in the maturity of this exciting new technology. Thank you.
Super, thank you very much.